you. So we'll start with Mangalacharan prayers. So if you can grab a copy of Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
Correct. Mangalacharan should be on page 1 of the introduction. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादां सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Thank you all for coming. So we will continue reading the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. So 3 weeks before we started reading, what are the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita? Can anyone recall what are the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita? Kala. Bhakti is a Ishvara. Yeah. So the hierarchy is that Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala and Karma. And also we saw that the Prabhupada also expanded and showed the differences between what is the difference between Ishvara and Jiva. So what is the difference between Ishvara and Jiva is, Ishvara is super conscious and Jiva is only conscious of his body. And also we saw that Ishvara is, the meaning of Ishvara is controller, right? And we are, and Jivas are also controller, but we are limited control. So Ishvar is the supreme controller and Jiva is controlled and conditioned. And why it is conditioned? It is conditioned under the modes of material nature. So we discussed 3 modes of material nature. Anyone recall what was the 3 modes of material nature that we discussed? Yeah, these are the 3 modes that we have, that is there. And then Prakriti, okay? Prakriti is the material nature. While discussing about Ishvara, we also discussed that Ishvara is the Purusha. And Jiva and Prakriti both are to be enjoyed by Ishvara. But the difference between though Jiva is also Prakriti, but the difference between Jiva and Prakriti, what is the difference between Jiva and Prakriti? Both are eternal. Exactly. So the difference between Jiva and Prakriti is that Jiva is conscious, like we see all the living beings, right? Whether animals, plants, trees, they are conscious, but the material, like what you see, the material nature, the matter, is not conscious. Okay. And Kala is basically we saw this relationship also. The Kala is basically the relationship between the Ishvara and Prakriti, and Karma is basically the relationship between the Jiva and Prakriti. But if Jiva focuses towards the Ishvara, then he develops Bhakti, and that is the topic that that is hidden, but Prabhupada highlights that in every page, every verse of Bhagavad Gita.
That is the ultimate goal of studying the Shastra or the human life itself. So, in Bhagavad Gita, the way Krishna has spoken, it is revealed gradually. So, first Krishna talks about Karma Yoga, then Jnana Yoga, and then Bhakti Yoga. Like, he builds up like that. But then Prabhupada, from the beginning, he is giving us that, the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita, he is giving us from the right from the starting actually. So, just to nail the point home, right? So, that's how it is. He has written the book.
Also, we discuss that in these 5 topics, there is one thing is not eternal, that is karma. Karma is not eternal. Rest all is eternal, though the laws of karmas are always eternal. And we also discussed about consciousness, right? Want to explain the consciousness? Good, explain.
So consciousness means awareness of the self and the surroundings. So how do you know we have consciousness? It's because we can think, we can feel, we can react to situations. So that's how we know that we are conscious. So consciousness is a symptom of the soul. So anywhere there is life means there is consciousness, or vice versa. Anything that is conscious means that's a living thing. So the dull matter will not have consciousness. So here Prabhupada defines consciousness as the feeling of I am, I, mine, right? That kind of, if we are able to think like that, that means we are conscious. So again, consciousness is, so the Supreme Controller, Krishna, he is conscious and we are also conscious. But what is the difference? The difference is that we are only conscious of our body. So I cannot feel what pains and pleasures you are doing. He cannot feel what I am doing, right? So our consciousness is limited to only our body. Whereas Krishna, because Krishna is present everywhere and in everyone's heart. So he knows not only, his own thing, but he knows everything in all the universes anywhere. The spiritual world, material world, each and everything. He knows us inside out. In fact, he knows us better than ourselves. So his is the supreme consciousness, and ours is limited consciousness. Again, Jiva's consciousness is also 2 kinds. So right now our consciousness is contaminated. So contaminated means we think that we are a product of material nature. We think that we come from matter. But actually our true consciousness is that we are a part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, it's our duty to serve Krishna. So when we are in that consciousness, that is called purified consciousness. So as long as we don't have that connection with Krishna and we think, we identify ourselves that I am this body, you identify with things around you. So that is contaminated consciousness.
So since we say that Jiva is conscious, and we are also saying that Jiva is anything like humans, animals, trees, plants. But do you think the same level of consciousness in a tree or an animal? We also discussed an analogy. As a soul, we all have the same level of consciousness, but it is covered. And we saw an example. Let's see that you see the 4 lights in this room. Let's cover them with different layers and different colors of paper. You may just put one red paper, so you may get light red color. But you may put 10 sheets of blue paper, so the light will also come less. So similarly, for that, there is a gradation in the covering of the consciousness. So it is only in the human form we have the least covering layers of consciousness. So that's where the human life is so important, to make use of that least covering and having the maximum consciousness to get the best out of it, is to basically to revive our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yes, so Prabhupada also gives, as we talked about purified consciousness, so he gives some examples for us to understand, right? So the purified consciousness is that Krishna is the enjoyer and I am meant to cooperate with him. But that doesn't mean that we are being deprived of something. When we are serving him, we are automatically getting nourishment. So he gives actually 4 examples here. One is, so all the body parts are limbs of the body. They are working for what? For feeding the stomach. So who is actually enjoying the food? Is the stomach. But hands, legs, everything is working to prepare the food, get the food, right? But can hands enjoy the food by themselves? No, right? Can legs? None of the body parts can enjoy the food by themselves. So they have to rely on the stomach to get the nutrition out of the food. So same is the position of a jiva with respect to Krishna. If Krishna is like the stomach, we are all like the limbs. We are all working together to serve Krishna, and Krishna in turn he is giving nourishment to all of us. He is maintaining us. So it is our duty to cooperate and serve him. Second example he gives is a part of a machine, a screw in a machine, right? So it works. So there are so many parts in the machine. They all work together for the machine to work. So that's how we should also think of ourselves with respect to Krishna. And then the other third example he gives is watering the roots of a tree. So we don't water, there's no use watering the leaves or the twigs or the flowers, right? You give to the root, and root distributes it to all parts of the thing. So similarly, Krishna is at the root of the whole creation. Just by serving him, everything else will be taken care of. And the fourth is like that of a servant and a master. So servant also enjoys the same thing as the master, but after the master, he serves, and then like if the master is having nice food, after master has, servant also has. My master is driving in a nice car, the driver or the servant will also go along with him, right? So actually, if you see, this is not a kind of discrimination that Krishna is doing against us. It's if many people say that it's unfair, that why only he is the enjoyer, why we are not. So actually, if we see, we are all actually enjoying. He is maintaining us, right? We are all being taken care of by him. The only prerequisite is we serve them voluntarily. We serve him voluntarily. So that's
the key takeaway that Prabhupada is saying that we saw the two terms in that last week was under the condition of the material influence, the jiva thinks that he is the creator and the enjoyer. But actually, all this example, what we saw is that jiva is neither an enjoyer nor a creator, but he is to be enjoyed and he has to be cooperator. So the machine example that we saw is the perfect example. What happens if a bolt comes out of a machine? The part is invaluable as long as it is separated from the machine, but as soon as it goes into the machine, its values increases. So that's where we have to cooperate it. So what it does it really mean in our practical life? Let's say watering the root or giving food to the stomach. So what does it mean? That the analogy all is that keep Krishna in the center. Everything we do. You see the current day, the society, the world society has tried everything and it has failed except trying God in the center. They tried socialism, which is all about that everything belongs to everybody. That it has failed. Capitalism is whoever can make more money, everything belongs to them. The communist philosophy is that the government owns everything, but all forms of this ownership has failed. But no one has tried saying that everything belongs to the God and we all work as a cooperator, not as an enjoyer. But you look at the current tendency, everybody wants to. Even now, Russia is so big. Even last year they tried to invade Ukraine and took some part of Crimea, right? So there is no, and how much of the wealth and energy we spent on defending ourselves actually, like just for enjoying. We want to give maximum enjoyment to our people. The same amount of money we spend more on eliminating poverty, or we don't need so much. Like we are going to see in the today's session where Prabhupada says that we have everything what we need in this material world, but there is if whatever we need we have The earth can provide, but we cannot provide our greed. So that's the key takeaway that we want to. That was we discussed last week. So we will start reading from after the end of this paragraph. Yeah, I think we read here last week. So we will continue reading from. Should be on page 12, second paragraph. Want to read?
We shall find, therefore, in this Bhagavad Gita that the complete whole is comprised of the Supreme Controller, the controlled living entities, the cosmic manifestation, eternal time and karma, or activities, and all of these are explained in this text. All of these taken completely form the complete whole, and the complete whole is called the Supreme Absolute Truth. So basically here, Prabhupada is making the point that the 5 things that we have studied so far, right?
5 topics.
5 topics. So this is all that exists. I mean, we have covered everything that exists in the creation, right? There is nothing beyond that. And then he's also introducing a new concept called the absolute truth. So what do we understand by this absolute truth actually? Any guesses?
Because it is eternal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
else is happens and
Right.
Yeah, the truth can be
Yeah. So what is the opposite of absolute? Like in physics, we have read absolute velocity and
Relative.
relative velocity and absolute. So relative velocity is what? Velocity with respect to some other thing. But absolute velocity is its velocity on its own, right? So similarly, relative truth is what? Truth that holds good in certain conditions. For example, now it is sunny. Is it the truth? Yes. Can we say the same thing at 10 p.m. tonight? No. So this, or in spring we say, okay, there are a lot of flowers. But can we say the same thing? Will that statement hold good in winter? No. So these things, these are all, if we see all the truths that we see in this world, they are all relative. They are dependent on certain conditions, plus they are not true at all times. But absolute truth is just the opposite of that, which means it exists by itself. It's, as Prabhupada said, it's a complete whole, and it is true at all times, and it never changes. Because if it changes, then it ceases to be true, right? Some facts have changed about that, so it ceases to be true. So that is the definition of absolute truth. And so the next Prabhupada says, the complete whole and the complete absolute truth are the complete personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. All manifestations are due to his different energies. He is the complete whole. So to understand this, we can look at the first verse of Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam actually, in Srimad Bhagavatam, the starting first verse itself, Vyasadeva defines what absolute truth means actually. So absolute truth he defines as Janma Dasya Yataha. Janma Adi means creation, etc. Janma is birth, right? Or birth or creation. So that from which everything else originates. So that is the cause of all. The cause of, Can you go to the verse actually? Maybe? Yeah. So first he says, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So he is first of all paying his respects to Vasudeva, and then he says Janmadasya Yato. So if we see the transliteration, it says Janmadi means creation, sustenance and destruction. Asya means of the manifested universes. Yataha, from whom. So this is the definition of absolute truth. That entity from which everything else comes. He is the source of everything. That is how it is. Absolute truth is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam. And what Vasudeva is telling, who is that absolute truth? Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, or Lord Krishna. So this is how the Bhagavad Puran starts actually. And here, Param
Param Satyam
Sat. No, Satyam Param. So that is, yeah, Satyam Param is what is the absolute truth or the ultimate reality. There's nothing about that truth. And is the cause of all causes. So if we see here, Prabhupada is saying that all these 5 topics form the complete whole, and that is the supreme absolute truth. So how do we explain this? So basically, so we are clear about, we already saw what Bhagwan means, or the Bhagwan, and we also saw how Krishna is the supreme controller. But actually, okay, he is the supreme controller, and then the controlled living entities and the cosmic manifestations, this already we have seen, they are the energy of the Lord. Even eternal time also is the energy of the Lord. And karma, how is karma actually possible? Because Krishna is arranging through, we'll see. Do you have that slide?
Which chapter? Verse
13, I think. So karma is actually carried out. We already saw that super soul sitting in the heart is the one who gives permission. He oversees our activities and he sanctions the activities. Only otherwise, if he doesn't sanction, whatever we desire, it's not going to happen. And the action itself is carried out by elements of material nature, right? So in past few classes we have seen the only thing a jiva does is to desire. Rest everything is taken care by super soul and through the agency of material nature. So even karma, for karma to happen also, Krishna only plays a role. Krishna and his energies only play a role. So actually if we see, all these are very closely connected and they all have their source in Krishna. So this is a little complicated topic, and we will be seeing, Prabhupada will be explaining this later in many more places, so that time we can go into more detail. But for now, the absolute truth means that from which everything else emanates.
which verse is that?
Yeah. The 5 doers.
13th chapter? Is it all? It's not that.
Okay, we'll see that later. Okay, anything else?
So here, so what Prabhupada is trying to highlight here is that there is nothing to be known beyond knowing Krishna. And Krishna himself says that he is the Matta Parataram Nanyatkin Chidasidananya. There is nothing to be known beyond me. And also here, Prabhupada kind of equates 2 things. One is the conception of God and the absolute truth. Why the conception of how we introduce the God as Ishvara, right? But we saw the definition of Bhagavan, Aishwarya, there are 6 opposites. But here we introduce that in a manner so that it can show the controllership among the other 4 aspects. Over the other 4, right? So that's where, but so that's the key takeaway, is that Krishna is the absolute truth to be known. Actually, there is nothing beyond that we need to know. And when many times when we have any doubts that comes into the scripturally, if you know all these 5 topics, you can clarify all the doubts, because these 5 things forms absolute truth, right? Ishvara, Jiva, Karma, Kala, and Prakriti. If you know all those 5 aspects, then you can understand why it's happening to you. But not to extend on the karma part of it, because Krishna himself says that karma is very complex to understand. We saw the example of Dhritarashtra also. So that's why these 5 topics are very essential to be known to understand the scriptures. Okay. So apart from these 5, okay, there is one more aspect of the Supreme that we will be discussing in the next paragraph. That's about the impersonal feature of the Lord. That is why that is important, because most of the philosophy that you see here, they describe Supreme Person as the not a personality.
Absolute truth as
Absolute truth as the impersonal. So we'll see this why Prabhupada is in all the purport or in all of the Bhagavad Gita, you will see Prabhupada's translate, he kind of wages war against the impersonalists or Mayavadis, because by portraying somebody, like we all are person, right? We have the personality, we have the individuality. So how if somebody calls absolute truth as a very impersonal, so no devotee will like it. So that's where you see this. Prabhupada will extend to maximum possible of negating that concept of that supreme absolute truth is a not a person. So we'll read further. Any questions here? Any questions on this absolute truth? Okay. Okay. We'll start reading on the third paragraph.
It is also explained in the Gita that impersonal Brahman is also subordinate to the complete Supreme Person. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Brahman is more explicitly explained in the Brahma Sutra to be like rays of a sunshine. The impersonal Brahman is the shining rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Impersonal Brahman is incomplete realization of the absolute whole, and so also is the conception of Paramatma.
So here, Prabhupada is talking about another feature of the Lord, which is impersonal, which does exist, but that is not the ultimate. That's not the supreme. So, but many philosophers, many yogis, they think that the impersonal feature is the ultimate truth. So here, Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita that that Brahman is the subordinate feature. We'll see in the later chapters in Bhagavad Gita.
14 chapter 27th verse he says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham means I am the basis of impersonal Brahman. This Krishna is himself saying. So he is the basis. So the Brahman is resting on him basically. So it's not independent of that personality of Krishna. So he is the source of Brahman. Yeah.
So let's understand what does Brahman means actually. This is the conception of the most of the Mayavadis. They think that the ultimate truth is an effulgence. And at the,
sunshine. Right?
yeah, I'm coming there. So they think that merging into the Brahman is the ultimate. The example which Prabhupada is going to give here is the example of sun and the sunlight, right? If you sun rays. So if you see a sunlight, so there has to be a sun behind it, right? It cannot just the light can come on its own. Similarly, it is. We'll see further when we study that the Brahman, that is an impersonal feature, is a truth, is basically an effulgence coming from the body of Krishna himself, actually. So that's the example that Prabhupada is giving with the example of sun. The impersonal Brahman is the sun shining rays. Oh, it's Prabhupada is already given here actually.
So here, Prabhupada is also making a point how Brahman and Paramatma realization. So the absolute truth has several features, different features. So Brahman is just one of the features, most preliminary. And then next comes is Paramatma feature. Paramatma is Krishna in everybody's heart, form of Krishna in everybody's heart. So this again can be understood how using the sun. So Brahman is like the sun rays coming from the sun. So somebody who is only realized, who has only experienced sun rays, is that the ultimate realization of the sun they can have? They have a realization of sun, but there is more to it, right? Yeah. So somebody, somebody else, they recognize sun as a planet, as a globe, hot fiery globe. So whose realization is better now? The second person.
Yes.
They have a little more advanced knowledge about the sun. And still there is some other person who actually recognizes that there's a predominating deity on that planet. Sun god or Vivaswan. His name is Vivaswan. For our current Manmantra, whoever is the sun god, his name is Vivaswan. So one who knows all these three, his realization of the sun is complete, right? Compared to the person who only sees the sun as a globe or who only is happy with the sunshine. So actually, if you see, all these are inseparable from the sun. None of them are false actually, but they just differ in the level of detail and realization. So it's the same with Brahman, Paramatma and the personal feature, the Bhagwan feature of Krishna. So they are all absolute truth. But the supreme, the ultimate among them is realizing that Krishna is a person. And you can have exchanges with that person. So the Brahman is just like, somebody is just saying, for them sun is sun rays. Similarly, for the impersonalists, Mayavadis, supreme absolute truth is just the effulgence, the Brahma Jyoti. And then there are yogis who meditate and then finally they are able to see Krishna in their heart. So their realization is like realizing that sun is a
Sundays.
globe. And then we have the bhaktas who have the complete realization, who go beyond these two and who actually accept Krishna in his original form. So that is the complete realization. So that's what we'll read further also.
So I want to give the analogy of samosa.
Yeah.
So,
We have a famous example.
so there is we'll give two reference examples, like how you realize all this Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, they all are the features of the Krishna, but how you realize it is we can think about. Let's say that for today's prasadam we cooked samosa. We just told that there is a samosa. So as you enter and you can smell the samosa getting fried. So that's a realization, right? Yeah, samosa is there and you start imagining, okay, a triangle kind of pyramid shape and samosa, okay, it will be tasty, crispy. That's the only realization. You never saw the samosa, you never ate the samosa. You only just by the smell of it, you just start conceptualizing that, okay, that's how samosa. Imagination, right? So now, let's say that you come further and you get closer and you're able to see the samosa. Okay, maybe you can touch it, but you cannot eat it. So you have next level of realization. Okay, samosa is crispy, hot, right? So that's basically the Paramatma realization. But let's say that you stop at the first two features, either just by smelling the samosa or touching the samosa. Is that the maximum enjoyment that you can get? When you can get the maximum enjoyment? When you're eating it, right? So the Bhagavan realization is that's where it comes. When you can eat, that's where you get the maximum.
Complete experience.
The complete experience.
Everything that can be done with the samosa. You have seen, you have smelled, you have eaten. So that's the complete experience of samosa. That's a complete realization.
And also the each encompasses that, like when you smell it, you're only smelling it, but when you're getting close and touching it, you can smell and touch both. But when you're eating it, you do all the three. So so the impersonal is already there in the Paramatma, the realization. The Brahman realization is already part of the Paramatma. The Bhagavan realization contains the rest too also. We'll see this. There is one more example. Maybe she can give the
Next class.
we'll give an example. There is another example of a train. We'll see this.
Okay. In 15th chapter, it shall be seen that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purushottama, is above both impersonal Brahman and the partial realization of Paramatma. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Satchit Ananda Vigraha. The Brahma Samhita begins in this way. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Govinda, Krishna, is the cause of all causes. He is the primal cause and he is the very form of eternity, knowledge and bliss. So how our bodies, we are made of three elements, right? Kapha, Pitta, Vayu, right? Similarly, spiritual bodies are made of Sat, Chit and Ananda. So Krishna's body is only made of these three elements. Although when he comes down in the material world, it looks like he has a normal human body like us, but actually these are the only, he is completely made of eternity, knowledge and bliss only. So that is Sat, Chit and Ananda. So impersonal realization is the realization of his Sat or eternity feature. Paramatma realization is the realization of Sat Chit, that is eternal knowledge. But realization of the personality of Godhead Krishna is realization of all the transcendental features, Sat, Chit and Ananda, that is eternity, knowledge and bliss in complete Vigraha or form.
So as we saw from the example of the samosa is that when the realizing the Paramatma feature, the Brahman feature is just the first level of realization. And that only contains the Sat feature. The Sat feature is the eternity part of it. But when you realize on the Paramatma, it has Sat, which is eternity, and knowledge. Knowledge of
What is that knowledge? Yes. So basically that's the first preliminary
will
knowledge that of the personal feature of the Lord, because they can see God as a person in their own hearts, right? So in Brahman realization there is no concept of form at all. In Paramatma realization you have a partial conception. Basically you see Krishna's four-handed form inside your heart. The yogis when they meditate they can see that. So they know at least that Krishna is, Krishna has form, and they also realize that they are different from God. So they realize that they are soul, and they also realize that the supreme soul is that Paramatma. Paramatma is the supreme soul. So that knowledge they get. In Brahman realization that is kind of missing. They think that once they go to Brahman, they become equal to, they become God. Everything is one. So that's their understanding. So there that knowledge is missing, but here in Paramatma thing that is there.
And in the Bhagavan realization is where you get the bliss, because you treat Krishna or the Supreme Absolute Truth as in person, and you have the relationship. When you have the happiness in the real world, where you get happiness? When you have in the relationship, right? We saw the example many weeks back that what if you give somebody $1 million and ask to go to a highland where nobody is there and enjoy the whole, will you enjoy? No, right? All our happiness in this world are derived from the relationship, and that's where the Ananda feature comes into the aspect of the Bhagavan realization. So just since this slide Prabhu has put, so just to revive this, so there are two this basically shows the different energies of the Lord. Okay, the Satchid Ananda feature is basically the internal feature or the internal energy of the Lord. There are two broadly it is classified as two, superior and inferior, para and apara, which is basically spiritual, and apara is material. Okay, within the spiritual there are two kinds of energies. One is antaranga and tatastha. We saw the example. What is that? That is basically a shore, right? So you can be either on this side or that side. So the living entities are basically
On the shore.
on the shore.
It can be on land or water, right? Similarly, a living entity can be in spiritual consciousness or he can be in material consciousness.
And within since this is the internal feature of the Lord, that's where the Satchidananda feature comes into the play, where internal energy of the Lord, and that has got three aspects: Sat, Chit, and Ananda, which is basically eternity, knowledge, and the bliss. Okay.
People with less intelligence consider the supreme truth to be impersonal, but he is a transcendental person, and this is confirmed in all Vedic literatures. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. As we are all individual living beings and have our individuality, the supreme absolute truth is also, in the ultimate issue, a person. And realization of the personality of Godhead is realization of all of the transcendental features in his complete form. The complete whole is not formless. If he is formless or if he is less than any other thing, then he cannot be the complete whole. The complete whole must have everything within our experience and beyond our experience. Otherwise, it cannot be complete.
So here again, Prabhupada emphasizing on the fact that the supreme truth is a person, though he has an impersonal feature, that is also a truth, but that is not the ultimate for the devotees, especially for the devotee of the Lord. And this we see in the Katha Upanishads, where it's saying Nityo Nityanam. If we are individual, then Lord is also has to be an individual person, right? It's not happen that the God who created us is impersonal and the jivas are personal. Is it a possibility? It's not possible. So that's what this verse.
Yeah, actually, this verse means that there are innumerable living entities. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. Then it says Eko hi bahunam vidadati kama. Out of that so many conscious living entities, there is one who is maintaining all others. So it's very clearly it is saying that he is a living entity, like he is a personality basically.
Is a maintainer. Is fulfilling all our wishes.
And then his Prabhupada is yeah.
Does it say like which form is it, like human form or?
So Krishna's Shyam Sundar form is the
200.
ultimate. Is his original form. From that form only comes all the 400 Vishnu forms, Narayana forms, everything. But Krishna's Shyam Sundar form is the
The
ultimate.
Trivanga form, the three.
With the flute, with
The three bending form.
So that's what Lord Brahma in Brahma Samhita prayers he says. Is the original personality of the head. Yes.
Even in the Bible, it says that man is made
In the image
in
of
the image of the God.
Yes.
Yeah. So how we are, that's how God is also actually.
So here Prabhupada is using now, he is getting very analytical. He is using logic to prove that complete whole cannot be formless. So complete whole should have everything that we know about. If something is lacking, then it cannot be complete whole. So when we have an experience of having forms, all living entities have forms in this material world, right? So if that experience is, if that existence is not there, that means the complete whole is not complete whole. So that's how he is refuting the impersonalist theory that ultimate truth is impersonal. It's not. But then we should also understand that actually the impersonal feature exists. It's not that Krishna is not impersonal at all. The Brahman is real. But then among the Brahman and the personal feature, which is superior? The form is superior. Because form is always superior than the formless. Formless itself means absence of forms, right? So
Actually, the Brahman emanates from the first.
exactly. Right. Yeah. Good. The complete whole, the personality of Godhead, has immense potencies. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shriyate. How Krishna is acting in different potencies is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita. This phenomenal world or material world in which we are placed is also complete in itself because the 24 elements of which the material universe is a temporary manifestation, according to Sankhya philosophy, are completely adjusted to produce complete resources which are necessary for the maintenance and subsistence of the universe.
So here Um, Prabhupada has introduced a term called Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya, do you know any Sanskrit meaning of Sankhya?
Sankhya is count.
Sankhya is count. So here the is basically the analytical aspect of the differentiating the spirit and the matter. So what here is Prabhupada is saying that the material element is made up of the material world is made up of 24 elements. So let's see what all those 24 elements are there, and so so we know that there are five five Panchabhuta elements, right? Earth, water, fire, and ether. Yeah, air and ether, right? So these are the five. Then the next fives are the knowledge acquiring senses. Like here, all you can see in your knowledge base through which you can gain. Like while seeing, you're getting all the inputs, right? Like eyes, nose, ears, skin, tongue, right? So these five and five form 10. The next set of fives are the working senses.
They give output. These are the input senses. These are senses through which you take input. The other five is which you produce something in output.
So the working senses are basically you can imagine like our voice, our legs, our hands, genital, our anus, right? So these are the next set of five elements. Okay, so 5 plus 5, 15. The next five is basically the object of senses. Like you see, so you see.
This form the interaction with the senses. This is what the senses interact with.
So, and you can see that whatever you saw in the knowledge acquiring senses, they are there corresponding senses. Like eyes, you see a form. With nose, you smell. With ears, you hear the sound. With skin, you have a ability to touch, and tongue is basically for taste. So we already covered 20 of them actually. Now there are three subtle means which will not have any kind of form, but they are present. But yeah, correct. So they are basically mind, intelligent, and false ego. So they formed 23. And the 24th element is basically the unmanifested form, which is called as Pradhan. We will hear more about Pradhan when we hear about the creation. How when the universe comes into the picture. See, how the creation happens is that everything is in the unmanifested form. Then from the pore of Mahavishnu, the small bubbles comes, right? Then all the manifestation happens. So Pradhan is basically the unmanifested form of the material elements. So these 24 elements forms the material world actually. But all these are material. So there is also based on the which kind of philosophy. This is the 24 element philosophy. What is missing here? Soul. Exactly, that is 25th. Or if then there is also 26 element philosophy. What is that? What can be the 26th element? Huh? Maybe next form of exactly. That is Paramatma. So these are the 24 elements that consist of this material world.
There's also a system that time is also there, right? There's one more.
Yeah.
25th element is time. So there are, some philosophies, most of it is the same, certain here and there. Sometimes Sankhya, they say 25 element philosophy, 26 element philosophy. But the material nature itself is, these are the four building blocks, 24 building blocks of the material world.
But by you're saying false ego, Just curious why are we saying false ego and not ego?
Yeah, so I think we
These
did
are-
last class, right? So false ego is identifying ourselves independent of the Lord, right?
That's how we are identifying in this.
Exactly. Yes. So we think we are the enjoyer. Everything is meant for my enjoyment. We are trying to be controllers. So that is the false ego. The opposite of it is the pure ego is, or the true ego is that
we are
we
the
are part and parcel of Krishna. Our duty is to cooperate with him.
And probably where does emotion fall under this? That's what we feel.
So mind has
Mind.
three functions: thinking, feeling, and willing.
Feeling is also
Yes, it's a function of the mind. The contemplation, we see something, we meditate on that. That's a function of mind. Then we feel something for that. We experience some emotions, right? For example, you watch a movie, right? And then you think about it. You contemplate on it. That's thinking about it. Then you experience some things from the movie while watching the movie. That's an emotion. And then, based on that, you have a desire to act in some way. You make a decision that I want to act in this way. That is willing. So all these three are the.
And is that mind associated with a body or
So
the soul?
So the mind, intelligence, and ego, they are a package. So they are the first covering of the soul. We call the subtle. These three are called the subtle body. They stay with the soul as long as the soul is in the material world.
and they transmigrate from one body to another body.
So, like after death, the thing that goes with you from here to the next life, apart with the soul, is the subtle body.
So that goes mind, intelligence.
Yeah,
Yes.
these three elements will always go with you.
And these are the three things that will keep you here.
Bonded.
Actually. Bonded. Liberation itself means giving up the subtle body. So as long as you have this covering, this subtle body covering, these three coverings over the soul, you will remain here.
So the pure soul has its own subtle body, meaning
There is no subtle body.
There is no subtle body. It's completely spiritual. So these three are material. These three coverings are material. Mind, intelligence, ego are material.
So we saw this the cosmic manifestation of the right diagram. So each bubble, which is basically an universe, has a covering. Okay, and each covering is 10 times.
10 times the
10 times of the previous covering. Suppose if the earth covering is so the water is 10 times of the earth. So you see the last three elements. So if once we get liberated, so we have to go.
The meaning of liberation itself is that you have to shed all these covers.
You have to leave all these things and then only you can go. So this is not going to carry to your spiritual world actually.
the soul, basically the absolute, there is absolute truth, Krishna. Soul is aware of that, right?
Right.
So soul must be having some sort of.
So soul itself is Satchidananda actually. In its true form, the original form, soul is Satchidananda. It has complete knowledge, it has bhakti, every soul has. But that is covered up.
So the example of the light, right? If you cover the light with all the paper, everybody will imagine that the light that emanates from the bulb is colored based on the coverings, right? But all the bulbs inside are like souls, which will emanate the true color. Actually, everything will emanate the same color. Actually, so it's based on the covering. The other thing is false ego. We saw that, right? Because we have so much time immemorial, we have been in this material world for so long, and our interaction with the material world is so extensive that we think that we are the product of this material world. That's why Prabhupada negated with the consciousness, right? Consciousness can never come from the material matter, right? It has to come from the living beings only. So because of our condition and covering, we think that we are the enjoyer and the controller. We never go into that part of being. Our constitutional position is Jivere Jive Swarupa Nitya Krishna Das. Our constitutional position is always to serve Krishna.
Yeah, that's interesting. So even after a person leaves the body, it's not that okay, it's a soul now and it has full awareness. It's still covered by all these.
Exactly,
That's a
yes.
big problem the soul tends to take next to
Right, right.
result karma.
Yes. Yeah. That's why, right, we have lots of cases where they have past life memories, this, that, so many things. And many things we carry from the past life also, right? Our nature, our samskaras, that impressions that Prabhuji was talking, the impressions in the mind. We carry, like, birth after birth, we carry from the previous life. So, these, yeah.
It's actually harder than leaving the body. At some
Yes.
point we leave the body.
Yes.
But
These are,
leaving
yeah,
that
these are really hard. Yeah. Right.
And the last part is the false ego actually. That is very
That
hard,
is the hardest
hardest to let go actually.
So, false. So, Madhuri, false ego means when we think that we are we are a product of material nature. That we are not our identity is actually spiritual. So instead of seeing our relation with Krishna, what we are trying to do is we are trying to think that we belong to this material world and everything here is meant for our enjoyment. You are trying to be the controller, you think yourself you are the creator, everything. So you want to enjoy it. So that is not actually our real position. Our real position is to be a servant of Krishna. So when we have that understanding, when we are completely convinced that that is the real true ego. But as long as we don't have that connection with Krishna, whatever else we are identifying ourselves with, that is the false ego.
And that is the biggest hurdle also for anyone to come and surrender to Krishna. Actually. The false ego, because we always identify ourselves on the false ego platform, on a bodily platform. That I have control, I can enjoy and things like that. So that's the biggest hurdle that even an advanced devotee has to face through to eliminate the false ego.
between soul and subtle body there is something called unmanifested, and you mentioned it's pradhan.
Yeah. Prabhu, can you help us explain the 24th element, unmanifested pradhan, Prabhu? The
That's the spiritual world.
Yeah, hold on.
this one, bro?
So unmanifested and manifested. So we can take an example of not house or something like that. So for constructing a house, then we need the elements, all the elements, wood and pipes and electrical things and all this stuff. All the stuff, let's say they are putting in a godown. Then those things will get picked up, and then the construction will begin. How? It will begin on the basis of the blueprint which is given. So the blueprint is the process through which the whole whatever is the ingredients will be taken, and then the house will be manifested. So that you can think of the unmanifested as a godown, where everything is lying there without going through the transformation or the process of creation. So before the creation begins, we need to go back a little bit. So before the creation, the previous destruction has happened. So let's say this house after 100 years,
Demolition.
then the demolition. Then you take out all the ingredients what is comes out of demolition, and something can be used, and most of the things cannot be used. So that we throw out. But then whatever can be used is put in one place. So when the house was there, that was a manifested state. That is called as Prakriti. What we see now. When you demolish the house, then nothing is there, only space is there. And other ingredients are there, but it is of no use. So that is the manifested state. So after a manifestation, again, from there, the manifestation will begin.
So it's like a plate of kind of thing. It's unmanifested, but once we start
Maybe like all the sand. If you go to the beach, Zen artists are really good, like one in
Puri.
Puri.
Jagannath.
So from the sand, he has manifested all these things. So that is Prakriti. Unmanifested thing can be stage, can be considered as a Pradhan, you can say that Pradhan is, yeah, Pradhan is then is actually equivalent to unmanifested. And then
So this is comprised of the other 23 elements.
see the first 5 gross elements are there,
Yeah.
and the subtle elements. So
Subtle.
all these elements are in unmanifested stage. So that is Pradhan. When the manifestation both process begins, then Pradhan turns into Mahatattva. And Mahatattva or sometimes the word Prakriti is used. Prakriti is the full manifestation phase. So that is Prakriti. Progress. It is unmanifested, it is not manifested yet. So that is.
So maybe in between the states, like one life, second life, that's kind of the Pradhan is the situated position.
Yeah. Soul goes through that.
Yes, and then it will take.
But it's not called as because it's in a manifested state, it's happening. So that's why it's not considered as Pradhan means it's like a blank thing, and then it has 3 modes of material. So the difference between Pradhan and Brahman is in Pradhan there is 3 modes, whereas in Brahman there is nothing, no modes. So it is almost equivalent to Pradhan is almost equivalent to Brahman,
This is material.
which is the
This
that is
is
material and
material,
that
this
is
is spiritual. So this pradhan is there only at the between Brahma's changes.
when the dissolution, complete dissolution
That is at the end of Brahma's life.
No, is it end of Brahma's life or
Yes.
end of Shiva?
No.
That is partial destruction. End of each yuga and the end of manvantras is partial destruction. That is complete.
Pradhan is only at the time of complete dissolution.
Complete. I have one more question, Prabhu. So, during the night of Brahma, where do the living entities go?
They are actually today.
Huh?
Today
Okay.
only we are doing our homework. This particular thing. So there are 2 kinds of dissolution. One is happening like at the end of Brahma's night, another at the end of Brahma's night. So at the end of Brahma's night,
Day.
night,
Day. Day, right?
sir, day. At the end of Brahma's day, the night begins. All the living entity goes into
Garbhodaksha. Yes.
Garbhodaksha.
Not to
Mahavishnu.
Mahavishnu, the Garbhodaksha Vishnu who is at the inside this universe. Yeah. But at the end of Brahma's life, all universes will
Go
go
to
back to
Mahavishnu.
This is there in 3rd chapter, 32nd chapter.
I see.
At the end of Brahma's day, it is not complete destruction, it is partial destruction. So there are certain lokas which is still there, which is active. So it only happens till like Swargaloka.
Pradhan is at the end of Brahma.
At the end. When creation is beginning from Mahavishnu only.
So up to Swargaloka it is all destroyed. So Mahaloka, Jalaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. Where Satyaloka is where
Brahma.
Brahma is. Now because of the heat, there is a lot of heat generated, destroying these things. So people from Mahaloka and Jalaloka they go to Tapaloka. Every day they are traveling, they go up because there is so much heat generated. That description is also given. They move up. It's all very scientific. Beyond our conception, but it is still.
Okay. There is nothing extraneous, nor is there anything needed. Okay, so we were discussing, we didn't get to this point. So we saw what is Sankhya philosophy and how everything that is created, it's complete in itself. So each universe, it says Prabhupada says they are completely adjusted to produce complete resources which are necessary for the maintenance and subsistence of this universe. So, the personality of Godhead is the complete whole, and whatever is coming out of Him, they are also individually complete in themselves, like the universes. Here, Prabhupada is giving the example of universe first. So, universes, they have everything needed for their maintenance and subsistence. There is nothing unnecessary, everything that is there has a purpose, and nor is there any shortage or any lack in the units. And another complete whole are the living entities themselves, actually. Right? We are also complete units, right? We function independently and to a certain extent. So everything that comes from the personality of Godhead is complete. And yet, there's another point is that even though he is producing so many things, he doesn't himself diminish. That's why he is the absolute truth. He doesn't change.
So they say 1 plus 1 for Krishna is 1, 1 minus 1 for whatever. So he does. Here the other thing what Prabhupada is mentioning is that we see so much shortage of food or resources, but it is what all artificially created. There is so much the earth can produce. Even in a desert can produce the sweetest desert, the date fruit, right? There is nothing like it cannot function. So the emphasis, even though the material nature which we saw that is the apara, it's inferior, but still it is complete on its own. Actually, it can sustain and maintain the jivas in this material world. Actually, and that's because it's coming out of. Um, let's see the very simple example you see is the trees, right? What they do during the day, they emit oxygen,
No. Yeah.
and during the night they take what? Carbon dioxide. It's a complete. There is no wastage actually. Right? How one can build a complete system like this actually? Like one complete jiva tree, it's just fully functional actually, and completes on its own. Can build something where the input is equivalent to the output? It can never going to happen actually, or without any waste actually, self-sustenance actually.
And also the composting.
Uh-huh.
The leaf and all these things comes out, you can just compost it, and then you get the manure for
But look on the other side, whatever humans have produced, plastics, chemicals, thinking themselves that they can produce that two negations, but Prabhupada is saying that we are neither a creator nor the enjoyer. But under the false ego, we always create thinking that we are creating the best actually. Are we creating the best?
so humans cannot create it. It's ingredients are also
Only transform.
Yeah.
Only transform.
so we cannot create. Technically, we cannot create. We have to use the ingredients which is given by Krishna, and then use that, and then do some transformations. It's always using this stuff. Like there was a discussion with Prabhupada and Hollywood, and he was having a glass industries, and he said he was very very proud. I make the glasses. I create these things. So then Prabhupada said, then how do you create? He said, I have created the industry, I have created job for these people, and I started posting on things. Then Prabhupada said, okay, can you explain the process of creation of your glass? So then he said that, okay, I take this thing, I take it down. Then have you created that? He said, no. Then Prabhupada said, because you not created that, means you are taking the things from the earth and just transforming it. You're just using it. Yeah, that much intelligence the person has used, but he has taken from the source and the material nature and just done some transformation and come up with something new. So that credit goes to you. But the creation of the basic elements, if those elements are not there, can you create those basic
There is nothing extraneous, nor is there anything needed. This manifestation has its own time fixed by the energy of the Supreme Whole, and when its time is complete, these temporary manifestations will be annihilated by the complete arrangement of the complete. There is complete facility for the small complete units, namely the living entities, to realize the complete, and all sorts of incompleteness are experienced due to the incomplete knowledge of the complete. So, Bhagavad Gita contains the complete knowledge of Vedic wisdom. It's a very heavy, loaded statement. Yeah.
So basically, what Prabhupada is trying to emphasize here is that if you understand the complete knowledge, which is complete in itself, we saw about like how this earth can sustain and maintain everything. So if you understand this, and there is a complete facility for small complete units. Like he is saying about jivas, that if we realize the completeness of the what is the complete absolute truth, we saw is that 5 aspects, right? The 5 topics. So if we understand everything, then we have everything in complete. And whatever we see that is not complete,
If we think that something is incomplete, that's because of our not understanding this whole complete knowledge. So that's what Prabhupada is mentioning.
One of the incomplete things we see is, why good people suffer. Right? Yes. So we think, God is incomplete, doesn't know how to manage the situation.
Yeah, we always say, right, why God is letting so many bad things happen. So there's so much trouble in the society, why God is not doing anything.
Why is so merciless, right? When we see all these things, we always think that why is so merciless? He's supposed to be very merciful. He's supposed to be very kind. He's a like our father. But all these questions comes to us when we see that karma is just whatever instance we are in.
yeah.
We are not able to relate to the past acts we have done.
So again, the complete knowledge is having the understanding of all the 5 topics that we discussed. And the main thing is that what we see, karma, we hardly can understand karma. Karma is so hard to understand. And that's why we see that sometimes we see good people undergoing some challenges, but we don't know what they had in the past. Okay, yeah, we'll read for there.
All Vedic knowledge is infallible, and Hindus accept Vedic knowledge to be complete and infallible. For example, cow dung is the stool of an animal, and according to Smriti or Vedic injunction, if one touches the stool of an animal, he has to take bath to purify himself. But in the Vedic scriptures, cow dung is considered to be a purifying agent. One might consider this to be a contradiction, to be contradictory, but it is accepted because it is Vedic injunction. And indeed, by accepting this, one will not commit a mistake. Subsequently, it has been proved by modern science that cow dung contains all antiseptic properties. So, Vedic knowledge is complete because it is above all doubts and mistakes. And Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge.
So here Prabhupada is saying that the Vedic knowledge is complete and we cannot doubt it. And he gives an analogy of the cow dung actually. It's mentioned that if you touch any form of animal dung, or even in fact for humans also, after we go restroom, it's best to take the shower if you go for potty. So, but the cow dung has been mentioned as one of the most purifying even in our homes in India. Many times we just put the layer of the cow dung in the morning, right, just in front of our house. That is basically an antiseptic, and that's now science is realizing, but that is known to us for so many years actually. Even now there is an awareness for the cow and other things in India, right? Last year when I went to India, now they are making antiseptic phenols out of cow urine actually. in my brother's house, they were having we used to have chemical phenol, right? This for now they are making out of the cow, which is 100% compostable and no environmental kind of thing. So no chemicals are not used actually. So also here Prabhupada is mentioning the Vedic knowledge as infallible, means that has got no defects, or it's not going to be true at some point of time and then it's no longer valid actually. It is always going to be it's always going to remain the truth.
Why? Why it will exactly.
Yeah.
Comes from Krishna, yes.
And we'll see further why also why it will not have any defects or faults. The very next paragraph we are going to read, because it's coming from Krishna, who cannot commit any kind of mistakes, is because he is not under any kind of the condition. We are all conditioned, right? And we will see what that condition causes and how it comes. What there are 4 defects in us. All of us have 4 defects. So we'll see that in the next paragraph.
Vedic knowledge is not a question of research. Our research work is imperfect because we are researching things with imperfect senses. We have to accept perfect knowledge which comes down as is stated in Bhagavad Gita by the parampara or disciplic succession. We have to receive knowledge from proper source in disciplic succession, beginning with the supreme spiritual master, the Lord himself, and handed down to a succession of spiritual masters.
So why should we receive the knowledge in the disciplic succession or in parampara? Yeah,
It's not changed.
it is not changed, and it is handed down as it is. That comes in the whole chain actually. There is no scope of speculation or trying to have your own interpretation actually.
So in the beginning classes we talked about how spiritual master is just like all the people in the disciplic succession, they're just like postmen. So they don't change the message, they just take from the source, give it to the destination. That's what a mailman does, right? So everybody who is in a bona fide disciplic succession, they do that. They just take the message of Krishna, they receive it from their gurus, and they just pass it on to their disciples without changing anything at all. So that's how, since it is coming from the Lord himself, the knowledge is perfect and complete. And the disciplic succession makes sure that it is not lost or adulterated in any way.
So Mother, just for since you are not in the initial classes, so this is the disciplic succession of the 4 sampradayas. One of the sampradayas is the Brahma Sampradaya, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, which ISKCON is part of. So you can see that the knowledge is emanating starting from Krishna himself, and it is handed down from time to time through the disciplic succession, so that there is no scope that where knowledge has been adulterated, and it is being passed on, handed down to the future generation in the same fashion actually. So that's where the knowledge has to be always received in these 4 authentic bona fide sampradayas.
Arjuna, the student who took lessons from Lord Krishna, accepts everything that he says without contradicting him. One is not allowed to accept one portion of Bhagavad Gita and not another. No, we must accept Bhagavad Gita without interpretation, without deletion, and without our own whimsical participation in the matter.
So we saw in the very starting of the Bhagavad Gita, right? Prabhupada called this as Bhagavad Gita as it is. And why it is? Because there have been many versions of Bhagavad Gita where they have all the commentators have their own interpretation. A politician would interpret as a political discussion, or a doctor would interpret as a discussion between a patient and a doctor. So here Prabhupada says that you have to accept the complete, all the verses, the meaning as it is. You should not just accept only the Karma Yoga is the truth and not the other part of it. We will see there are 3 sections in the Bhagavad Gita: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. So the ultimate truth is what Arjuna did. Arjuna basically followed what Krishna said and surrendered to him and to do his duty.
in modern day, you find many philosophers and new gurus coming in the market. But once you study Bhagavad Gita and then you hear them, just for an assessment, so you will see that they are actually talking about Bhagavad Gita except Krishna is not there, and they have added few practical examples to that philosophy, and then they are presenting that, and that has been accepted by, and which is good actually because it's a message of Bhagavad Gita, but because they are not in disciplic succession, they think that that is their interpretation.
Their contribution to
Contribution to the
that's what they
society.
think is that.
And the contribution to the society, and then they think that this is sometimes they think this is my invention, so, and then they create a whole group and all of followers are there. But if you really see, all these things are given in this 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita. It's all the messages there what Lord Krishna has to give. There is nothing, in fact, Jiva Goswami, there are 6 Goswamis in Bengal. One of the most intelligent, Prabhupada, according to Prabhupada, is one of the most intelligent person in the entire creation. His name is Jiva Goswami. He has written so many books. And he's clear, and he has put that thing in the Tattva Sandarbha, that there is no knowledge, whether it is material or spiritual, which is not there in Veda. There cannot be. It is there, it is explained. Because the Veda, originally the Veda is about 1 billion verses. 1 billion. And on top of the 1 billion, the essence of that 1 billion is transformed into 400,000 verses. And then all the 4 Vedas are distributed that way. So there are 1 billion verses. From there it takes essence of all this 1 billion into 400,000 verses. And then it presents it to us in a written form. Out of that 400,000, 96% is lost. So how many? 94% is lost. So 6% of Veda is available as of today. 94% is lost. But the subordinate things, which is the Puranas or Itihasas, that is 100% intact. And it has the same essence as those 100% of whatever information there is. That was good. That's why for us, Puranas and Itihas, they are enough. We don't need to go for Vedic knowledge and Itihas. So he says that Vedic knowledge is, there's nothing there, material or spiritual, is not there in Vedas. It's there.
The Gita should be taken as the most perfect presentation of Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is received from the transcendental sources, and the first words were spoken by the Lord Himself. The words spoken by the Lord are called apaurushaya, meaning that they are different from the words spoken by a person of the mundane world, who is infected with 4 defects. A mundaner is sure to commit mistakes, is invariably illusioned, has the tendency to cheat others, and is limited by imperfect senses. With these 4 imperfections, one cannot deliver perfect information of all-pervading knowledge.
So we saw in the very first few classes, right, when we were going through the overview of the Vedas, we called also Vedas as Apaurushaya because it was spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. Right? So we are saying here that Veda is infallible, right? Because it has got no defects or flaws. But a common, here Prabhupada is calling us a mundaner or common people will have 4 kinds of defects. They are in the order, okay? The order is our senses are not perfect, limited as well as it is not perfect. Like we see a sun like a small ball, right? But is it not? It is how many times bigger than the earth itself actually. So what we see is not always true, or see or hear or whatever experience it. is not the truth.
We sometimes see water on the road, right? Like when we are driving on a sunny day, we see it. So we have many optical illusions also like that. I mean, this is just talking about one sense. We have
Mirages.
so many, like all five senses are full of defects and are limited also, right? Our eyes cannot see everything, right? We can't see our own back, right? We are limited, so limited. We can't hear so many frequencies.
Here. Here.
We can't see the eyelids.
Yeah, we can't see our eyelids, right?
This is the closest.
Yeah.
So since our senses are not perfect, so that causes illusion. The order is the senses are not perfect, imperfect senses.
So we get incomplete or wrong inputs, we are illusion. Our conclusions will be wrong. Right?
So when we are illusion, what will happen? We are bound to commit mistakes, right? And this is the most important is that once we commit mistakes, we have the propensity to cover up, right? So these are the four defects every living has. But this is not, Krishna is not subjected to these things, and that's where since the Vedas comes from him, so Vedas are perfect. So that's why Prabhupada mentioned, starts this verse with the very strong statement that Vedic knowledge is not a question of research.
Because even if we are researching, we are doing it with these four defects.
And research is what? Basically, you look at the science world.
Research, right?
See, you find something, okay, you interpret something, okay, this house, again you find something. So it's not, you are not having a complete understanding to basically conclude. Whatever you find based on that, see, you see the science, right? How they have been evolving. Earlier in the 1930s, they said that the smallest element is the atom. Then they said the electron, proton. Now you have something which they are not able to go beyond. Now they are calling as a God particle. Actually, so the science is always, the truth is always changing actually for them actually. But Vedas, whatever has been stated millions of years ago, it's going to remain the same because it's coming from the. And why it is going to remain the same? Because it's coming from the creator of this material world, right? Yeah. So,
Vedic knowledge is not imparted by such defective living entities. It was imparted unto the heart of Brahma, the first created living being, and Brahma, in his turn, disseminated this knowledge to his sons and disciples, as he originally received it from the Lord. The Lord is Purna, all perfect, and there is no possibility of his becoming subjected to the laws of material nature. One should therefore be intelligent enough to know that Lord is the only proprietor of everything in the universe, and that he is the original creator, the creator of Brahma. In the 11th chapter, the Lord is addressed as Prapitamaha, because Brahma is addressed as Pritamaha or the grandfather, and he is the creator of the grandfather. So no one should claim to be the proprietor of anything. One should accept only things set aside for him by the Lord as his quota for his maintenance.
so here, the first, the living entity in this whole universe is Lord Brahma. So when this universe was created, so it was all dark. And Brahma is coming from the navel of Vishnu, right? So he goes, he's totally in the dark. He doesn't know what to do actually. Right? So he tried to go onto the top of the navel.
He tries to climb down.
Climb.
He only hears some waves,
Yeah.
the sound of the waves. And he tries to find out. He doesn't have. It's just like you appeared into nowhere, right? And you have no idea where you are, what you have to do. So Brahma was in that position. There was darkness all around. He was on the top of a lotus, and he didn't know what he should be doing, where he came from. So he starts climbing down the stem of the lotus, but doesn't get very far.
Don't figure out anything, so he goes back.
He goes back up. goes back up and then he hears, he's really wondering what to do. Then he hears a voice say tapa, tapa. So he understands he has to perform meditation. And then when he does that, then Krishna through his flute, he hears the flute of Krishna. And through that, inside his heart, all the Vedic knowledge is revealed to him.
So now we understand like there is another way of getting knowledge. One, we know that somebody is speaking and another person is hearing. Right? Or somebody is writing. And then we understand what that person is doing. That's the two ways of getting knowledge. Now here the
The third way of knowledge where it's revealed in the heart.
heart. It's directly revealed in a shortcut. It's like a USB drive to here.
Right.
Or it could also be that he is already born with it, but he just needed recognition.
Yes. The knowledge is actually,
There.
Brahma's body is like our body is made up of mostly earth. There are 5 elements, right? You just read.
Earth, water, fire.
Earth, water, fire, air, and ether.
Brahma's body is only intelligence.
But Brahma's body is made up of intelligence.
So we have 8, right? All these 5 elements plus mind, intelligence, ego. So as we go to higher planetary systems, they become more and more subtle. So the percentage of gross elements will be less and less. And Brahma is the topmost, right? He's only made of intelligence.
His own body is made of intelligence. So if he has to give up his body,
He has to give up
No, the
his
intelligence. So here again, the emphasis here is that the knowledge is coming from Krishna to Brahma and through his sons and through the parampara, and that's how the knowledge is still existing in this present age, and will even propagate to the future generation. The authentic absolute truth knowledge will be through the disciplic succession. Yeah.
There are many examples given of how we are to utilize those things which are set aside for us by the Lord. This is also explained in Bhagavad Gita. In the beginning, Arjuna decided that he should not fight in the battle of Kurukshetra. This was his own decision. Arjuna told the Lord that it was not possible for him to enjoy the kingdom after killing his own kinsmen. This decision was based on the body because he was thinking that the body was himself and that his bodily relations or expansions were his brothers, nephews, brothers-in-law, grandfathers, and so on. Therefore, he wanted to satisfy his bodily demands. Bhagavad Gita was spoken by the Lord just to change this view. And at the end, Arjuna decides to fight under the directions of the Lord. When he says, Karishye vachanam tava, I shall act according to your word.
So again here, it's basically Prabhupada is mentioning about how Arjuna first thought he should not fight the battle because he was thinking at a bodily platform that he is going to kill his friends, his relatives, his guru. But Krishna gives him the transcendental knowledge that don't look at it from bodily relationship, and you have to execute your duty as a Kshatriya to fight, and then Krishna accepts that in the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita that I will do whatever you say. So it's something which all of us have to take in our own life, is that whatever Krishna's instruction in Bhagavad Gita is not only for Arjuna, it's for everyone actually. Can you prove anything, bro? It seems to be...
yeah, I think that's it.
Huh?
In this world, men are not meant for quarreling like cats and dogs. Men must be intelligent to realize the importance of human life and refuse to act like ordinary animals. A human being should realize the aim of his life, and this direction is given in all Vedic literatures, and the essence is given in Bhagavad Gita. So what really distinguishes human beings from animals?
Hmm?
Yes, we have a higher level of intelligence, and so basically all living entities will do four things in common. What is it? Eating, everybody eats, sleeps, defends, mates to produce children, right? So these are the four similarities that we have in common with
Animals.
animals. But then if we only stop here and not do anything else, then we are as good as animals, right? So human being, because he has been given a better intelligence, and as we saw, our consciousness is much more developed than what it is in birds, trees, and animals. We should be doing something extra also, apart from animals. Otherwise, we are no good, no better than animals. So, what is it? Human beings can inquire, what is the aim of my life? That's the one thing that will distinguish human beings from animals. A cat and dog on the street, they will not sit and think, what am I supposed to do? Why am I here? Where did I come from? Nothing they will think. They are only interested in satisfying their bodily demands. So human life is not meant for only satisfying bodily demands. Of course, we should do what is necessary for us to be alive, maintain our family, but what we have to do is, the main purpose is, the success of human life is to first inquire. Vedic literature is meant for human beings, not for animals. Animals can kill other living animals, and there is no question of sin on their part. But if a man kills an animal for the satisfaction of his uncontrolled taste, he must be responsible for breaking the laws of nature.
So here, basically, what it says here is that if we violate any form of law, like killing an animal, we will face a karmic reaction. But in animal, the, they don't occur any kind of accumulate karmic, and they basically only expense their karmic whatever they accumulated.
So in order for animal to kill, for the lion to live,
Mhm.
it has to kill.
Yeah.
So in that case of lion, it is an instinct. Right? He doesn't eat, he cannot eat grass. It's not
Meant to eat grass.
Similarly, deer is or a cow is not meant to eat meat. But what are these people are doing? The scientists they will feed the cow with meat. You know that?
Cow with meat.
Beef eat ladate.
Meat killer. Yeah.
Cow's meat to cow.
That's how the mad cow disease came in. The result of feeding the cow with meat resulted into a mad cow disease. This is called as mad cow disease. So they were experimenting that they want to make the cow more fatter quicker. Quickly they want to make the cow fat. So then they grind the beef in such a way and then mix it with the normal grass and all this stuff. And then they give it to it. So the cow doesn't know, so they eat it. And the body never digests. Because of that, the mad cow disease came. It's a new kind of disease. It's resulted of feeding the cow with meat. So similarly, for human beings, the choice of food we have, the design in which our body is there, is same as the vegetarian animals. Our intestine is 36 feet long, 37 feet long. Their intestine is approximately the same length. But the intestine of like lion or any meat-eating animal is like 12 feet. It's small. Why? Because when they eat meat, they want to take those things out very quickly, all the undigested food. Our digestion process actually is 24 to 48 hours. It goes through a long chain.
Also, our teeth
Our teeth is
not meant.
Those teeth, so our body is only designed to eat vegetarian. There is a concept of herbivores, there is a concept of carnivores. But you have invented a new word, omnivores. Doesn't work that way. So now if you put it in 800 legs, there's so much diseases coming. Even because we can't handle those kind of food. It rots inside our body for a long time. There's a lot of colon cancer, other kind of cancer because of all these things. Meat sitting there and not getting processed.
So the larger point here is that human beings must obey the Vedic injunctions and not violate them. So if animals, so Vedic literature is meant for human beings, not animals. So if animals, if you see animals are only acting according to what they are made of, right? They have the sanction. The animals which have sanction to kill other animals, they are acting according to their nature. But it's only human beings who
Goes out of them.
sometimes, most of the times, we break the laws of nature. So that's the point Prabhupada is making, that human beings must be, the Vedic literatures, the rules and regulations are given in the Vedic literatures are for the human beings and we must do it. And if we break them, there is sin on our part.
Now we went to this place, we were going for Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were going for this for the retreat. And there used to be some deers over there. And there used to be some coyotes. So the ranger they decided to kill all the coyotes. Or take away. So for 1 or 2 years, there was no coyote in that area, wild animals. So the deer populations became so bad. So then they had to bring back those animals.
This is another point how the creation is complete, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How we say ecosystem and other things, but this is Krishna's arrangement of keeping everything in check, going on smoothly, right? This is also one of the ways he is doing it actually. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly explained that there are 3 kinds of activities according to the different modes of nature: the activities of goodness, of passion, and of ignorance. Similarly, there are 3 kinds of eatables also: eatables in goodness, passion, and ignorance. All of this is clearly described, and if we properly utilize the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, then our whole life will become purified. And ultimately, we will be able to reach the destination which is beyond this material sky. Yad gatvana nivartate tadhama paramam mama.
So again, here Prabhupada is bringing the material modes of nature. We saw that the material modes of nature has the influence on all our activities, whether it's our clothing, food, faith, the lifestyle. So here Prabhupada is emphasizing with the eatable part of it, and we'll see more in the 17th chapter where Krishna clearly mentions what is the food in the mode of goodness looks like, how the mode of passion. That's why you see most of the prasadam, it will be juicy, it will be kind of not too spicy, not so many using pungent element like onion, garlic, or kind of a thing. So those are classified as in the mode of goodness. Because if you eat sattvic food, it will also impact it will elevate your consciousness. If you eat more in the mode of ignorance, without knowing that you are violating the laws of karma, like eating a meat or even something which cannot be offered to Krishna, which is kind of condemnable actually. So basically, by emphasizing this point that we should basically try to live according to the laws of the nature. And as a human form, we have to realize this is very precious, which animal cannot appreciate that. Neither they have the consciousness nor they have the intelligence where they can appreciate, or they can even follow the laws of the nature actually.
So here it's also described how if we follow the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, our ultimate destination will be beyond this material sky. Meaning we can, and the verse that is there, it says that supreme abode of mind, this is Krishna talking later in the later chapters, he says that supreme abode of mind, if you once go there, you never come back. That's what this verse says. So basically, this is the way to reach that supreme goal, just by following the Vedic instructions and the instructions given in the Bhagavad Gita. So the way to reach the spiritual sky is this. So next, Prabhupada is describing what is that destination. So that destination is called the Sanatana sky, the eternal spiritual sky. In this material world, we find that everything is temporary. It comes into being, stays for some time, produces some byproducts, dwindles, and then vanishes. That is the law of the material world. Whether we use as an example this body or a piece of fruit or anything. But beyond this temporary world, there is another world of which we have information. That world consists of another nature which is Sanatan or eternal. The Jiva is also described as Sanatan, eternal, and the Lord is also described as Sanatan in the 11th chapter. We have an intimate relationship with the Lord, and because we are all qualitatively one, the Sanatan Dham or sky, the Sanatana spiritual, the Supreme Personality, and the Sanatan living entities. The whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to revive our Sanatan occupation or Sanatan Dharma, which is the eternal occupation of the living entity. We are temporarily engaged in different activities, but all of these activities can be purified when we give up all these temporary activities to take up the activities which are prescribed by the Supreme Lord. That is called our pure life.
So here Prabhupada is comparing the material world to the spiritual. The material world, everything is temporary. Any jivas has to go through 6 kind of phases. They take birth, they grow, they maintain themselves, they reproduce, they dwindle and ultimately die. But in the material world, in the spiritual world, everything is eternal. And here also Prabhupada is bringing the concept that Lord is eternal as well as jivas are also eternal. And we already seen in the earlier classes that we are qualitatively same with the Supreme, but quantitatively we differ. So just to give an example, you Mataji, like a drop of salt, a drop of ocean water has got same qualities
As
but
the ocean itself.
as the ocean itself. But in terms of quantity, it's a huge difference, right? So, but also it signifies many things. The huge ocean can float many things. It floats a shape, it has the so many living entities, big sharks, whales, but what a drop of water can have. So it's also an analogy between how is we are so minute, so small compared to the Supreme Lord. Anything what else is being discussed?
So basically, jivas are Sanatana or eternal. But where are we stuck now? Which is temporary. So everything here is temporary. So basically, it's a very incompatible situation for us. We are eternal by nature, but the place where we are living, it is not eternal. Right? So where we actually belong, we belong to a place also that is eternal. And this paragraph is introducing that concept. The spiritual sky is the eternal sky, and that's where we should belong actually. And the way to go there is to follow the whatever Krishna has prescribed for us. If we just follow those instructions, then our life will be purified and we'll be able to get out of this temporary world.
So here I think Prabhu has mentioned in the slides few things which we can focus is we always see so what is the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita or the message of Bhagavad Gita? Okay. Is basically to purify our existence. What was our original existence? We were all with Krishna, but because we wanted to enjoy independently of Krishna, that's why we came here in the material world. But the true message of Bhagavad Gita is basically to re-establish our relationship, and we can see that we can establish relationship in any of the 5 rasas. We saw multiple ways we can establish our relationship, is to basically to go back to the spiritual sky, which is always eternal as the Supreme Lord, and we are also eternal. Okay. Here, the some definitions on Sanatana, which is given by Sripad Ramanujacharya, is that has got no beginning and end, which is the actual definition of eternity. Sanatana is eternity. Also, there is a common notion that people usually think that dharma is what the so-called religion. They usually equate dharma as what we usually follow as the main religion: Hindu, Muslim, Christianity. But here, the actual meaning, in fact, by Prabhupada, there is actually no definition of equivalent of dharma word in English actually. So basically, what is dharma? Here Prabhupada gives an example. Is basically what is the dharma of water? The dharma of water is basically to stay in the liquid state. But what happens if you freeze? It will become solid. What happens if you boil? It will evaporate. But is that the natural condition? No, natural condition is to be similarly the our dharma as a living entity as the jivas is to be servant of Krishna. That is our dharma. And if you look into the any religion, like whether it's Hindu, Christian, Islam, all they have an underlying message is basically we all are servant and the Lord is a supreme and we all have to surrender it. But the way how humans interpreted it, that's where it causes the fictions, and that's where you see the clashes between the religions comes into the picture. But the eternal message, if you follow Sanatana Dharma, we all are servants of God actually. And in fact, we all are the sons of God. That's what Krishna says actually. We all came from Krishna, or from the Supreme God. Anything else, Prabhu? I think it's
The whole purpose is eternal. We are eternal stuck in temporary. So the eternal beauty is different from the temporary beauties. It doesn't mean you give up temporary beauties and like somebody is in the family, they need to give up their family life or job. That has got nothing to do. So the message of Bhagavad Gita is not that you leave everything and then you become sadhu or something like sannyasi or something. That's not the message. The message is you understand that you are not here meant for enjoyment. Once you understand, then you appropriately devise a plan to get out of this temporary situation. And that can be done even in the family life. In fact, that is better, easier to do in a family life compared to a mendicant life. If either he is a brahmachari or sannyasi, that's more difficult. But this way, you can apply whatever resources you have in the service of the Lord. So you connect